Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, good day. Thank you everybody for joining our webinar today. We really appreciate the investment of your time. I'm Leo Pyman, the VP of Sales at ISP3 and Team Kane Solutions, Inc. We have a theme this year for our webinars. We're calling it, Let's Take the Journey Together. And if you're not on E19.2 yet, we're pretty sure you're thinking about going there. And why, you might ask? Well, one of the key reasons would be so that you get support to 2030 from Oracle. So that's pretty important stuff. There's a multitude of other reasons why you'd want to get to 9.2, but we'll save that for that conversation for another day, I think. So regardless of the release level you're on, though, we would love to help you on your journey with JDE to 2030 and beyond. Next slide, please. So we're going to be at Collaborate 19 again this year, and we're going to be at booth 848. So we would love it if you'd pop by and visit us. Booth 848 is right near the Oracle area, just for your information. It's a very busy, event, Collaborate, but if you look for Oracle, look around the corner there, we're going to be there, and I would love to chat with you. So ISP3 is an Oracle Platinum partner. We've worked very hard to obtain and maintain our premier status. We specialize in all things JD Edwards. We've been around about 18 years, so we've been doing this for a little while. From a JD Edwards services perspective, we can help with upgrades, migrations, implementations, and managed services. And here's a fun fact. We are actually an Oracle JD Edwards customer ourselves, and we're also an Oracle Cloud customer. We're running JDE 9.2 on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI, as Oracle likes to call it. And as one of the first clients on Oracle Cloud, we can assure you that whatever your needs may be, we are very well equipped to guide you on your journey through 9.2 to cloud and beyond. Next slide, please. So to be in a position to help with the journey to 9.2 and beyond, we're also proud to be a reseller and services partner of a variety of JD Edwards business optimization products. So we offer Oracle JD Edwards certified solutions for things like real-time inventory visibility, warehouse management, and automated data collection, ready-to-use templates for BI Publisher, JD Edwards purging and archiving, supply chain solutions, package builds, accounts payable, invoice automation, and last but certainly not least, JD Edwards security best practices via AllOut Security, which we're going to learn a little bit more about in a few minutes. So with that, I'd like to turn the session over to Linda Nelson from AllOut Security. Linda has been training IT professionals on JD Edwards modules, including finance and security, for over 20 years. Linda led the security design and control environment surrounding multiple ERP systems at a Fortune 500 organization before joining AllOut Security in 2016. Linda's rich 25-year career includes accounting, CI processes for manufacturing, and project management. And I'd like to toss the ball over to you, Linda.
Excuse me, first thing I go to say and I stumble on my voice. Thank you very much. Today we're going to talk a little bit about user-defined web objects or user-defined objects. Really, when I started down the journey of getting my hands around what all we could do with user-defined objects, the first thing that hit me is, what do you call them? Half the community calls it a UDO. Half of the community just says that pages and stuff. And I found out with a little bit of research that Oracle's really marketing it as you do. Users can do it. You do. So UDO or you do. So that was the first thing I learned as I started down the path. As we go through the session today, we are going to be monitoring, I think Alana's going to be monitoring the question box. So if you want to go ahead and ask a question, enter it, and she will interrupt at any point and go ahead and ask the questions. And really, Alana, go ahead and throw them out there wherever they happen to come up. They are recording the session, and we'll make it available for you after this fact. So let's get into what are UDOs? And we're going to really go down the path first briefly about a little bit about who we are. What are user-defined objects? What are the different types that are available to us in the current environment? How do you manage the security and the publishing? And we're going to go through that standard process because I really like to, in my webinars, make things educational, so really talk to you about what's out there, how that standard process works, and a little bit about how the AllOut toolset can help support you and streamline those endeavors for you. Quick wrap up. So who are we? We really focus on empowering best practice delivery of users, management, security management, working with your menu or task view, reporting, getting user security and menu information at your fingertips, getting good change management audit history around all things security and compliance. We support segregation of duties, SOX and JSOX reporting, really have a new process developed for the European market with the GDPR requirements, and lots of processes around just getting security information at your fingertips. Project automation, and I know that the ISP3 and Team Kane group can attest to some of the places that we can streamline those initiatives if you're going through upgrades, open to close, even net new implementations. Just real quickly, what makes us unique? We really partner with Standard E1. So everything you'll see from us is how do we work within the Standard E1 methodology and make your processes simpler, easier, and less risk. Low upfront investment, we are a complete solution. You'll see a couple of reports throughout here, but we've got over 100 delivered reports, but they're developed within the standard reporting methodology. So there's no third-party reporting tool needed, and lots of training and information available for you to ensure that, to empower you to really be successful. So a little bit about what makes us unique. So enough about us. Let's get into what is the content that we're looking for today. So what is a UDO? Really, UDO is a user-defined object. The goal of this platform is to change the way we are interfacing with EnterpriseOne and really put information at the user's fingertips. So we're not searching through our J.D. Edwards environment for information anymore. Targeting really improving that overall user experience, reducing your ERP system cost of ownership, getting information to individuals faster with less development life cycle, with less development interaction, and really empowering those quick business decisions will have the effect of reducing your ERP system cost of ownership. Not just in what it takes to build a report, but what it takes to make a decision and analyze information. So this is, traditionally what many of us have looked like. I know I've looked like these two a few times as I've tried to get my arms wrapped around information within the J.D. Edwards system. You're crunching the data, you're data mining information. What is it I'm looking for? And what we're really working to do is empower our users to feel like this. I like the kids down here in the corner. Look, I found it. But really making that interface with your J.D. Edwards data a more user-friendly information delivery. So one of the key components of this whole UDO environment is citizen developers. What does that mean? It means all users can create these tools. Once you create them, you can request that they get published or shared across the environment. From a business process perspective, we've really got to define who has the ability to request things to publish, who can publish those, who can manage security, because once again, if you've got these tools out there, you've got to determine who has them and who has access to them and how they can interact with those. There are a couple of schools of thought. I know last summer when I was at InFocus, I went to the very first UDO SIG meeting, and if you're interested in this topic, Quest does have that UDO SIG that's just getting off the ground. We are going to be getting together at Collaborate again, but there's various schools of thought, and what came out in that initial meeting was, from a citizen developer perspective, some organizations are driving the ability to create these objects into the hands of their high-end lead experienced users, and some of the businesses are driving the ability to manage this information into their business analysts, but keeping it within primarily that IT cycle. From what we have found, either school of thought works. It depends upon the experience and comfort level of the users within your organization. The other thing we've found is that sometimes it depends upon the maturity of your JD Edwards implementation. If you've got a mature, stable environment or a mature, stable, trained staff, they're more comfortable digging into the information and driving this. If you're a fresh implementation, a lot of times there's more guidance needed. And it doesn't have to be consistent. It may be that maybe the finance modules were the first thing that you implemented at your organization. So your finance team is a little more experienced. Let them, or the leads within that area, take ownership of developing some types of objects. And in another area, you may want to keep it with your business analyst or even still a development individual involved, but with different tools at their ready. So different schools of thought, and it really does vary based on organization. So let's talk about, when I say these objects, what are these objects and what is available for individuals? We're going to walk through some of these, talk a little bit about what they are and how they work and what the business uses might be for each. So let's talk about queries. Queries are a methodology that you can limit the information that's presented on a grid. So in this case, I wanted to look at all employees. So if I come into the address book, I want to see all employees. Historically, you can come in and you could QBE for E. You could QBE for, new employees, ex-employees, or terminated employees, and you could get a list of each one of them. Well, now I can say, if it matches any of these criteria, present this information on the grid. I can take this. Remember, these types of queries, now instead of creating, a query for me, instead of coming in and saying, yeah, I want to see all East employees, I can share this employee information with multiple individuals across the organization. So it's a way to get consistent presentation of information and ensure that everyone is considering the same data set when they're looking at something. Grid formats. I think we've all probably used grid formats in JD Edwards. I remember the first module that I ever implemented within JD Edwards was GL. Actually fixed assets, but then GL. When I did this GL implementation, I had 70 accountants to pull into a room and train them how to use JD Edwards, how to get through their month-end close tasks. And this organization was going to be living half legacy for a number of years. So there was going to be a lot of manual journal entries, a lot of dumping information from legacy systems, manipulating it and loading, copy and pasting journal entries into JD Edwards. So the first thing I had the room do as I was teaching them how to, what is a grid and how does it work, was to create a custom grid. And I had them each create a simple journal entry because I was giving them a template that they could use to copy and paste their journal entry into JD Edwards, all these manual things that they have historically been performing. But to give them a template, I had to have a consistent template that they were pasting into. It was a great exercise. People learned the value of creating a custom grid, but as soon as a user accidentally changed their custom grid or forgot that they were using a custom grid and had a different grid presented, they'd go to copy and paste in their journal entry, and now I've got support calls because my copy and paste didn't work. What broke? We're human. That happens. So now with the UDO grid format methodology, I can create a standard grid. I don't have to have everybody do it themselves and everybody tweak it themselves when the time comes. I can create a simple journal entry grid. I can push it out to all the users and make that available to everyone who needs to do a journal entry, and it's protected. They can't go in and modify that. And so it's a consistent methodology and consistently available. So from a grid format, I can give this whatever organization I need it to have to fit my business needs. Composite Application Framework, or CAFE1 objects. This is where I can bring everything together. I can bring together my grid. Maybe I'm in customer service and I'm taking phone calls from customers. I can quickly look up that customer, select their information, get a map of where they're located, get information around their invoice transaction details so I can see what's going on with their invoicing, and I can get some trending information so that when I'm on the phone with them, I've got a broad picture of who this customer is as I start working with them and talking to them about whatever their need is. From here, these are E1 screens. If I want more details about an invoice, I can click on it and go into it just like I can any other screen. I can bring these pieces together, work with them all at one time, and work through the process. In this case, this is another example of a CAFE1 where I've brought together graphics that were developed in another tool we'll look at in a minute. I can have my watch lists over here. We'll talk about OneView watch lists. We'll talk about some of these other pieces, but I can bring that all together in one grouped dashboard and put it at the hands of my users. In this case, very simply, I took my AllOut menu. I've got it here. I've got a variety of shortcuts that can link me out to other places. I could have, Launchpad here. I could have my watch list down the side of how many disabled users do I have, how many pending security requests do I have. I can have that security information on my CAFE1 report if I want. So I can have all of that together. So it's really a way to put up a business management component. So let's take a look at OneView reports. OneView reports is where you can pull in a lot of that graphical presentation of information. And you saw pieces of this brought into my CAFE1, so you can develop this, how do I want to look at my information? So instead of, first thing I do on Monday morning is go in and pull up my my payment information from each of my regions. I don't have to go pull up a query, look at it, doesn't make sense. I can, using queries, and using watch lists, I can create criteria as to what's green, what's yellow, what's red. It can be different for each region depending upon what it is that I'm looking for. But here I can see, Josephine is in a position that she's got payment amounts of $58,000. She's green, she's good. I'm a little more concerned about Carol. She's not processing as many, so I want to spend my time this week working with Carol. So it gives me an opportunity to very quickly target my effort as to where I want to work. Those reports are based on watch lists. So what are the watch lists? They represent a collection of items that matches specific user criteria. It enables me to define what it is I'd like to be alerted to. So from a security perspective, if I want to see if I've got more than 10 disabled users in the environment, I can cause it to alert me to that and to show me that. They're very easy to create, and they're based on queries. So you set up the query just like I did employees. I could have created a watch list that's new employees. And if that new classification goes above 20, then in HR, I want to be alerted, or in IT, I want to know what the heck is going on. So you can do something like that, but it's very easy to create. They're based on the queries. And you'll have an area here for watch lists that you can quickly see that you can set the criteria on each of these, whether they're, there's no concern, so the font is normal. There's a little more activity, so the font is bold, or when do you want it to turn red? And on each one of these watch lists, you set that criteria. You can have individual watch lists or shared watch lists, the things that are available to everybody. And we're going to talk about that process of sharing, what are the steps you need to go through, how you need to do it. Now, if I have a watch list and maybe my unavailable equipment, I'm the maintenance manager. I want to understand, why do I have unavailable equipment? What's going on? I can go ahead and click on that. It's going to bring me up the information associated with that query. So here's my query. It's unavailable equipment. Here are the 5 pieces of machinery that aren't available. I can tell what their status are. I can tell, where is it located. And this is, again, it linked me out to a standard E1 screen that now I can select one of these records, go to the detail on it, and understand what's going on. So gets me very quickly to the 5 pieces of equipment that I need to pay attention to this morning. I don't have to navigate through my menu, find a screen, look it up. Do I have any that are down today? And I have my little checklist of the screens that I go through every morning. I don't need to anymore. Those screens are the ones that I care about, are right in front of my face, and the ones that are red are the ones that I need to drill down to. And to drill down to them, I just click on those. So really can save me time in ensuring the stability of what I want to look at, ensuring that my focus is where it needs to be each time that I go into the system. As we're building information within the product, images. If you've got an image that you want to standardly represent inventory across your organization, put the image in, make it available. You can have personal images that you use all the time on maybe E1 pages that you're developing, or you can have shared images that are available to everyone. We'll talk a little bit about the pending approval in a minute, but it's basically things that have been requests to be shared but haven't been shared yet. So I can now use these images if I want to say, this is the process that I go through for, reviewing inventory. I'm going to do my inventory vessel by vessel view, and I've got that consistent image that I want used on all my steps in my E1 page. So I can make those very quickly available. So easy way to share, to get a standard look and feel of the presentation of your process steps throughout your environment. Okay, let's talk about form personalization. So what is form personalization? Exactly what it says. It's a chance to make a particular form look different. Branch plant data, this is off the item branch. The item branch in standard JD Edwards is a screen that's got multiple tabs, and those multiple tabs often include information that are managed by different groups of people. So in this case, the idea of having this purchasing information here is traditionally on another tab. It's not presented on the front tab. And so what I wanted to do to enable, maybe this is all information that's maintained by my buyers. I don't want them to have to move between tabs, because when they move between tabs, they forget to update stuff. They're human, they're moving fast, they're receiving phone calls. So how can I ensure that their data entry is as accurate and simple as possible? We'll get everything to one place. Take off of that screen things that they're not responsible for, to keep them from accidentally entering something in the wrong field. Clear the confusion, simplify, and it's, from a security perspective, it also enables me to manage what they have presented to them, so they're not updating something that they really shouldn't from an accounting perspective or an accounts payables perspective. So item branch is a great place where I can go through, I can customize this form to present exactly the pieces of data that whoever has this job function wants to, that whatever they need to have in front of them. We'll talk a little bit about making these available to individuals as well, and how that form personalization, having it job function specifics, can really be important. Let's talk a little bit about orchestrations. So orchestrations are really one of the, I don't want to say one of the newest areas of the UDO functionality, but they're one of the things that are really just recently getting some legs. And it's how you can collect, filter, analyze, and act on real-time data. It's how you can build automated processes or build prompted processes throughout your organization. Your goal is to have less human involvement and ensure that these processes are consistently and continually occurring. Many of them can harness Internet of Things information or digital information that's coming in and being presented to the process. So I'm not going to go into a lot more details on orchestrations. It's there is so much. We can do an entire webinar on orchestrations, but it's about automating your business processes and really taking that human interaction out and taking the opportunity for human error out. So let's take a look at EnterpriseOne Search. This is a very cool tool. This is a way to do basically a query or an inquiry across your environment, across your JD Edwards environment. So traditionally, you get a call, you've got a lubricant that's been recalled, goes through a product recall. So what do? You may use this type of lubricant in your manufacturing process. You might use it in maintenance. You may use it as something you resell. So the first thing you do is you go and you look in your bill of material, you look on your open work orders, you look on your maintenance work orders, you look in your inventory, you have your materials group look for it, you have your shipping group look for it. Do I have any sales orders that are in process to sell this? So you're literally, you get a team full of people in a room, somebody that owns each process, and everybody go look for what's in your environment and that's causing, that might be an issue because of this recall. Now you can spend half a day finding all these pieces, or a couple of hours at least, finding all of these pieces. You come back together and you start analyzing it. Okay, we got all this stuff. Now what do we do? That process is slow, it's complex, and it's risky because we don't live in a stable world. While you're going and looking and coming back and talking about it, that inventory is moving, those sales orders are shipping, those work orders are continuing to get manufactured, so you're using a faulty product in your manufacturing, so you're investing manufacturing costs that you can't give back. You're maintaining machines with lubricant that's not effective. So there's lots of opportunity. From an EnterpriseOne Search perspective, if I had the same issue, I would come in, I would do a search, and I'd say lubricant. These are all of my components right now that use that lubricant. I can very quickly, each set of data that I've chosen to include in my search is going to present as a tab. So here's my work order parts list. Here's my bill of material of where all it is. Here's open purchase orders for it. Here's unshipped sales orders. I've got it very quickly. I know where all of it is and what's going on. These are E1 screens. I can click on each one of these and go into detail. I can quickly hold the work orders because I don't want to continue manufacturing something with a faulty component or with a lubricant that's not going to do the job. So I've just picked up that half a day of going and figuring out where I stand, and I can quickly interact with those pieces of data to keep them from moving. So I can find my inventory, I can put that inventory on hold, I can take my work order parts and I can hold those work orders. I can quickly take that sales order and change the status so it's not shippable. Now, I've really decreased that time to react to this issue that's come into my manufacturing process. Gives you a single search to request all of that relevant data. It's very fast from the perspective and very efficient in the way that it searches across the database. So it's not going to cause an undue resource utilization of your servers and that across your environment. And it gives you quick information to base good decisions on. So EnterpriseOne Search, I watched a webinar last week about it, and I laughed when the gentleman that was presenting said, if you're not using it, you should be. And how can you utilize it, and how can it save time and reduce risk within your organization? And I really agree with that. Form extensions. Let's talk about form extensions. So form extensions are a way to present additional information on a screen, on an interactive application, to your users. Anything that's in the business view that's supporting that application. So whether it's something that's normally presented on a different tab, or whether it's something that's normally not even presented on the screen, but it is included in the business view. Here you can see I've updated the header area to add additional fields. Here you can see I've updated my grid to add additional fields, really to make sure that wherever possible, in this case, I'm looking at customer service inquiry. I want to really give that customer service individual all of the information they need in one spot, so that they're not having to click out to other screens, so they can be as responsive and reactive as they can be to our customers. So get that additional information that's needed for decision making, for reacting, for just understanding the situation that's there, all into one screen. And that's really what form extensions can enable. One more, EnterpriseOne pages. So EnterpriseOne pages have come on board as a method of replacing or partnering with menus and task views. Some people enjoy that standard task view navigation. Some people are more used to a more graphical interface. Wherever possible, I always recommend, as a best practice, take your E1 page steps and make sure that they're aligned with your task views, so that if you've got a high-end user that's used to going through the task view and they're trying to help somebody that's used to working with E1 pages, if you've got a folder on your task view that's voucher entry, and then a folder that's supplier and voucher entry, and each piece of that is presented as a button, it's the same logical navigation. It's just presented in a different way, which makes it easier for people to step back and forth. It makes it easier for people to help each other, and easier for your support team to assist. Now, this is just an example of an E1 page that was automatically generated from our StartOut tool. And all I did was take the task view and have our StartOut tool interpret the task view and generate an E1 page. Once you do that, you can go ahead and add a block for a reconciliation, put your company logo up here if you want, whatever. But it just automated that creation. I didn't have to go through and do all of that. And then I was able to edit it as necessary. So we have hit all the different UDOs. Any questions that have come into the question box yet?
Thanks, Linda. That was really awesome. As somebody new to UDOs, I thought this was really cool to see. So thank you for presenting that. So far, no questions have come in. So I'll just remind the attendees that you feel free to, if you do have any UDO questions, please feel free to submit them. And we are recording this. So if you don't have a question right now and you watch the recording and then you're like, oh, wait, I want to know about this, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to answer them. So I think, Linda, you're good to carry on.
Sounds good. Thank you. So there's two basic groups of the UDOs. There's the ones here that are more data in nature, whether it's the queries, the searches, the OneView reports, and those that are more how you're interacting with the system, your E1 pages, your form extensions in nature. From what we have seen, the ones in the lighter blue tend to be the ones that are rolled out first in an organization, and the ones that are rolled down to that user level first. So may not be a hard and fast rule, but might be the place you want to start if you're not already using the UDO platform. So let's take a look at details of the process. How does this process work? I know all these options I have. Now, how do I do it? So there is a life cycle for the UDO process. You create those, and traditionally, these are done by, the creation is traditionally done by a citizen developer, somebody who knows the data and understands the information need. They'll go ahead and request to publish it, and that's normally the same person who creates it will request that it gets shared across the organization. Now, the next step is to review those pending items, and that's normally done by an owner. Now, I've seen that done by an individual owner who is the lead for the finance area. I've seen it done by a business analyst or a program lead who's responsible for understanding not only what's going on from the UDO process, but, do we have a report that's in development that might be a natural partner with this? And if we've created a launch pad, maybe they want to add this one more thing for this other, somebody who really understands your business processes and what's going on in your JD Edwards environment. It could be a team of individuals that are responsible for reviewing, and then one person will go in and change the status. So once it's been reviewed, it's approved and published. And again, that's normally done by the owner. Then it becomes, like everything, at the bottom of the line is the security guy. we've published it, we put it out there, then you normally have your security administrator that needs to create the view security and make it available for use. This security administrator, just to clarify, is not always the same person that's responsible for doing standard JD Edwards security. It can be, it does not have to be. Very often it is, just because they're used to that mindset of managing security. So take a quick look. I was going to show you very quickly how to create a watch list. Actually, no, I was going to show you how to do a query real quickly, just so you can see it. Let's look at P01012, and let's use the example of customers. When I go to create a query, these data sets are not hard to, or these UDOs are not hard to develop in many cases. I want to create a query. I'm going to come into here. I'm going to manage my queries. First thing, it's going to default to create. I can go ahead and create it. I want my particular query to show records that match any of the criteria I'm going to add here. So what is it? What are the criteria I want to work with? So we talked about working with search type. So I want to say where my search type is equal to E is an employee, or maybe I've got customers. So I want my customers, and we also sell to other locations within my organization, so I want to include my facilities. And maybe we go ahead and I also let my customers or my employees purchase. So if I want to look at the population of who all could be a customer to my organization, I need to include all of that information. So once I go ahead and I create, these are all of the records that I want to present, I can go ahead and save it. These are all customers. I've created the query. That's really all it took to have a standard data set presented every time I go ahead and work with the information. Now I can go ahead and I can, save it as something else. I can go ahead and request to publish it. It's not a difficult process. The icons that are going to be presented, you saw the save, you saw the save as. Request to publish, when I click on this, it's going to develop the request to share that information with other users. An approval still needs to happen before it's available. One of the other icons you'll see there is reserve. Within that business process, once it's been published, if I want to make modifications, maybe we're making a business decision that we're no longer going to sell to employees. So I want to reserve that UDO. And it's very similar to having the token available to me in the standard JD Edwards development process. I don't want anybody else making changes to this. I'm currently the owner of it. I'm going to go in, I'm going to modify it to remove employees as an option, and then I'm going to request it to be republished once I've made that modification. The other option is delete, to be able to delete one of the UDOs from the process. So those are the options that will be presented on that screen when you're going in and making modifications. So when you do that approval process, you have an option. When the request comes in, the approver can check on P98-220U what all is pending approval. Once they approve it, they can choose to approve it, and it will immediately be available. It will be available to make available to users. You still have that security step to happen, but it's then classified as a shared UDO, or they can reject it, in which case it's going to go back to the ownership of the person who published, or the person who requested it, for them to make modifications or do whatever it is that they want to change. So when you're looking at the statuses, you've got your personal stuff, the things that you've created. So right here, personal. You'll see pending approval, those things that you have submitted for approval that hasn't been approved yet. You will not see things that others have submitted. Rework, meaning it's been rejected, it's come back. You'll have reserved. Those are things that you've said, hey, I want to make modifications to this, and you've taken that ownership. While you're making modifications, it is still available to other users in its original form. And then shared. Those things that have been gone through that approval process and been approved are then shared and available for other users. So how do you make it available? What does this UDO security look like? There's multiple steps in the process. The first of this is feature and content security. So let's look at, feature security is a global setting or a group of global settings that enable each of these UDO types globally. So what is the business's role in this? Really determining what features are going to be utilized within your environment. Some schools of thought are turn everything on immediately. Some schools of thought are let's hold this a little closer until we understand how we're going to utilize it. AllOut currently does not handle the feature security because it really is a one-time setup. So let's look at what it looks like. So where do you go? You go to the security workbench. You go to the form exit for feature security. It's going to come up and it's going to look like this, and you just turn on and off each one of these features. I left this warning here just to make you aware that if you make a modification here, it will not have an impact until you clear your security cache. So the other piece that I have in here is your content security. So because again, it's a one-time setup component, we don't have that built in. So be aware that you also need to go into your content security. And this is specifically for composite pages. What are the functionalities or what are the content that you're going to enable in each one for this area? You can do it by user and role, and you do have to turn these on or off to make them available. So let's talk about the next component. So next is action. It is who can create, publish, and modify. It's no different than action, standard action security in JD Edwards. Who can do what? So, oops, let's go back here. So let's take a look at it. From the standard JD Edwards delivered process, this is, this type of security is really going to define what users can do. The business role here is to assign responsibilities. Who is responsible for what? This is a functionality that AllOut has empowered and enabled to be used within our toolset to really streamline the process. So I'll show you next what the standard process is, and at the end I'll show you how we've kind of streamlined those processes. So from a standard process, you're going to look at the action security, and it's again, I went to it from the security workbench. From the security workbench is a form exit off to exit security. Let me show you right here. So right here, it's the action security from there. So when you come into it, you're going to see I can have this set up star public. I can have it for individual users. I can have it for security roles. I define it by object type. And then I can do specific applications or I can do star all. Then what is this access level? And this is interpreted here in these green and red. So what functions or what actions can star public take for all documents? What actions can a net take for PO 1012? So this is where specific to Cafe 1, specific to E1 pages, specific to grid formats. So this is how I define either by user, role, application. I will always say wherever possible you want to define all security records, these included, by role. Try to align it with your business processes. Try to align it with your security roles. So when we talked about business functions, when we talked about the process for buyers and aligning things with business process, same thing. When you're enabling the UDOs, do it by role. Go ahead and make that information available. When you go to add a record here, you can do one record at a time. You open it up, you do add, it's going to have you select the object type, and then it's going to have you go through and modify each piece of information. Again, it's a one at a time process. So next is the view security. So this is who can see what. what users have access to what pieces. So now it's not who can create a grid format, but who can, once it's there, what can I do with it? Who has the ability to use that E1 page or that? Again, your business role is determining how much or little will be available to whom. And we'll show you how we've combined that process into our JD Edwards or into our AllOut screens in a minute. Here's the standard process. Again, I went from the security workbench, navigated to my view security for my UDOs. And this is just, it's on or off. Do they have the visibility to it or not? Star public, you can do it at a user level, you can do it at a security role level. It is by object type. You can do all. Once you have to specify the object type, but once you do that, you can say all objects are available or specific objects are available for all applications or for some applications, some versions, some forms. Same as with standard JD Edwards security. From a best practice perspective, you want to use these specifics when it makes sense. Use them as an exception, not a rule from a best practice perspective. So again, I go to add a record. It's one record at a time. I can add I have to define the object type, and then I can go through and add the details for one record. So what have we chosen to incorporate into the AllOut toolset? What we've done, excuse me, is our standard methodology is to simplify your JD Edwards processes. And we've done that with the UDOs. We watched the community struggling with best practices around it and how to streamline it and the cumbersome part. And we've worked to make it simpler, to make it easier. So this is, and I presented this here in the print screen in Fat Client only because the standard JD Edwards process can only be done from web. This was my reminder to let you know that the AllOut toolset can be used in either. You can do it in Fat Client or web, with whichever you prefer. So what we've done is we've brought all of this information together so I can see, you know, what's published, what's not published. I can gather the information. I can work with the statuses right here. I'm working within a grid. So we have rolled into this. This is the same screen that we use for our standard JD Edwards security. So now you can manage not only all types of JD Edwards security within the screen by security role, I can also handle both my publishing process and my E1 and my UDO security process within the same place. So it makes it easier. You can do it at once. It's a grid, so you can copy and paste in large groups of information. Here's where I'm managing my security. Here's where I've got visibility to who my originators are, what that object status is, and I can modify, you know, who can view, who has access to it. Same thing, I can do it based on star all. I can do it specific to applications and objects. So I don't have to do record changes one by one anymore. Just another example of the presentation of that screen. If I take a look at this, I can work with this information by adding, again, I can give David access to all of the information, and he can view, create, publish, modify, and I get that all in one place. I don't have to have multiple records on different screens. I go to different places and do it. I do it right here, one place, manage it once. And this is a JD Edwards screen. I can give visibility to this to some individuals as well, if they just want to be able to see who can do what, or I can give update to the appropriate individuals. If I want different people managing different pieces of this, use data security around the screen to manage who has the access to update what and who has visibility to what. Looking at it from a web environment, I can go ahead and I'm going to come into maintenance programs. I'm going to look at my security and menu management. This is just my AllOut screens. I'm working right within my JD Edwards environment. Maintain my security on the supergrid, and here I can manage everything. I can go ahead and see and look at, and this is just how it looks on the web environment and how I can work with it here. So the same type of idea. I can see the status, whether it's shared or not, and what's going on with each component, who has access, and I can make the modifications right here on the fly if I choose to. It's a grid. collect the requirements offline, copy and paste it in. So really striving to save you time. So from a time savings perspective, we do things like with new users, instead of going through 7 screens, multiple clicks, 1 user at a time, we can enable a grid where you can go through 2 screens, 1 to create the user, 1 to assign roles. You can do a list of users at once because, again, it's a grid. So we use that same ideology with the UDO security. Traditionally, it's 3 screens, multiple clicks per record. You can only use it in the web. We went through and said, okay, let's put everything into 1 screen and make it 1 full picture of what's available. And you can do it fat, client, or web, whatever works better for you, and you have all of those records together. So from an information perspective, how do you tell who can get to what? So we've developed reporting over that. So I can see program security. I can see, what Cafe 1 reports are available, what screens, OneView screens. So I can take each one of these components and see what's available to an individual or to a security role, whichever is the way I want to be working with this right now. And I can get full visibility as to their action security, what they've got available to them. If there's multiple security roles involved that have access to a particular object, I can see which one is their effective security based on the hierarchies. So I get all of that information in one place for all of the different types of UDOs, so I can really gain a picture as to what does this security role, what can my buyer do, or what can Rod do in this particular situation. Again, that aligns with our methodology of creating, reporting, and information and putting it at your fingertips. So, wrap up. We've talked a lot about this business process and the different players that are involved, and that it really is, it's a life cycle. And we've talked about some of the security components and the features that you have to look into and what you really have to manage as you go through it. If you're looking for more information, we have within our organization, for this and many of the other subjects, written tutorials and documentation that can be made available. Live one-on-one or live online training sessions when you're going down this path for our customers. There's around best practices, how to use our tool set for reporting and maintenance, kind of general functionality overviews. If you want information, contact us. Any other questions?
Yes, actually, we did get a question in there. So when adding or changing the UDOs, do you recommend doing so in development and promoting up, or just managing changes in production? How do all the environments remain in sync?
Traditionally, I would recommend doing them in development and promoting up. That promotion process within JD Edwards is still a little bit cumbersome, but you do have to do a change management process on that to manage that promotion through environments. Now, very, very often, because your security tables are consistent across environments, the security is managed in one place, and then it impacts PY, PD, all of your environments.
Okay. So that is it for the questions right now. So if you do have any last minute questions, please feel free to send them in and I can. Oh, yes, we do. What version of AllOut has the UDOs security in the supergrid?
3.2. 3.2 has it in the supergrid. So if you're not on 3.2, reach out to our services. We are shipping it to all new customers now. We are rolling it into our existing customers on a timetable just to make sure we've got the staff to support anybody who has questions. So if you don't have it, reach out to services. They'll get you on the list to get you prioritized to get it shipped out for you. So if you've got more questions, check us out at Collaborate. We'll be at Collaborate. We're doing a variety of sessions there. Check out our webinars. And I know you guys have some last minute things you want to say. And if there's any other questions, we'll gladly stay on for those.
Okay, that's awesome.
Alana, did I cut off your questions, or were you good? I'm sorry.
No, we're good so far. But again, any other questions, please feel free to send them in, and I'll pass it back to Leo.
Alrighty then. Well, thanks very much. I've been pretty quiet through this webinar. I'm dealing with a pretty nasty cold right now, I went through the entire winter without a cold. Spring shows up, kaboom, I got a cold.
Oh, no.
Who knew? Go figure. Anyway, happy spring to everybody in the Northern Hemisphere as well. It's a pretty joyous event every year, especially for, I'm sitting in just outside Toronto in Canada. We still have snow on the ground. It's still pretty gnarly. So we are definitely looking forward to the spring and the nicer weather. So, thank you very much for joining again. If you could please fill out the survey as you exit the webinar. We really appreciate your feedback. It helps us improve on our mission to get better every day. And if you want to reach out to myself on behalf of Team Kane ISP3, I'd be more than happy and willing to have a conversation with you as a follow-up to anything you heard today. Linda, thank you again. Fantastic job as always. Really appreciate your efforts.
I'm glad I could help.
You're a rock star when it comes to webinars, I got to tell you.
Oh, thank you. I keep trying. Please do fill out the survey, because hopefully they'll let me know if there's things that I need to be changing as well to continue making my webinars of value to all of us.
Fantastic. So I don't think there's any more questions. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, Alana.
Nothing yet.
Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up. It's just a few minutes to go, but I actually have another call to get to, so I'm going to exit stage left. And Alana, if you wanna carry it on for a couple more minutes, please do. Otherwise, thanks again, everybody, and we'll look forward to seeing you at Collaborate.
Okay, thanks, Leo.
Cheers.
Okay.
So, yep, I'm staying on if anybody has any additional questions, but if not, we thank you for joining us today. And Linda, thank you again so much. This was really cool.
I'm glad you liked it. I had some fun putting this one together. So it's a topic that seems to really be hot within the community. So I know a lot of folks are interested in it, and we're going to be presenting some more in-depth stuff at Collaborate. So because it does seem to be really of interest to people as they're moving up and they're following that journey with you and moving forward into 9.2, they're taking the opportunity to benefit from all this new interaction with the system.
Awesome.
So.
Right. Well, I'm going to stop the webinar there then, I suppose. But again, feel free to reach out to Leo or Linda if you have any additional questions.
Thanks for joining us today, everyone.
Thank you.